In the early 1960s, while Ferrari and Aston Martin dominated the exotic car world, a small group of dreamers in California built something extraordinary. They created a car that magazine editors called perfect, a car so beautiful that it caught the eye of Hollywood, a car so well engineered that it embarrassed established European brands. And then it vanished. The story begins with Milt Brown, a young engineering student at the University of California, Berkeley, in the late 1950s. While most students dreamed about careers, Brown dreamed about racing. He did not just want to watch motorsports, he wanted to build race cars. This obsession led him down an unusual path that would change American automotive history in ways nobody expected. Brown threw himself into learning everything about race car construction. He studied European designs. He analyzed chassis dynamics. He understood that American hot rods were powerful but crude, while European sports cars were sophisticated but expensive. Somewhere between these two worlds, Brown saw an opportunity. He started building America's first Formula Junior car right there in Berkeley. Formula Junior was a new racing category in Europe, designed to be an affordable entry point into professional motorsports. Brown wanted to prove that Americans could compete in this sophisticated arena. His Formula Junior project caught attention in the small but passionate California racing community. Brown was not just another enthusiast with a wrench and a dream. He had real engineering talent. He understood weight distribution, aerodynamics, and the delicate balance that separates a good race car from a great one. But building race cars in a college workshop only went so far. Brown needed connections, resources, and opportunities that Berkeley could not provide. In 1960, Brown made a decision that would define his future. He traveled to Monaco for the Grand Prix, one of the most prestigious races in the world. Monaco was not just about the race. It was where manufacturers, designers, engineers, and wealthy enthusiasts gathered. It was where deals happened and partnerships formed. Brown walked through the paddock, surrounded by the biggest names in motorsports, looking for his break. That break came in the form of Frank Reisner. Reisner was not your typical businessman. He was an American industrialist who had built a successful fiberglass boat manufacturing company called Intermeccanica in Turin, Italy. Reisner understood production. He understood quality. And most importantly, he understood that the European sports car market was ripe for disruption. When Brown and Reisner met at Monaco, they discovered they shared the same vision. They wanted to build a grand touring car that combined American power with Italian craftsmanship, a car that could challenge Ferrari and Maserati without the astronomical price tag. The partnership moved quickly. Reisner had the manufacturing facility. Brown had the engineering vision. Together, they started planning what would become the Apollo. But they needed more than just a factory and an idea. They needed a design that would stop people in their tracks. They needed something that looked as expensive as it would perform. For the body design, they turned to the legendary Franco Scaglione. Scaglione was not just another car designer. He had penned some of the most beautiful automobiles ever created. His portfolio included the Alfa Romeo BAT concept cars, vehicles so sculptural they belonged in art museums. Scaglione's worked for Bertone, one of Italy's most respected design houses. When Scaglione agreed to refine the Apollo's design, Brown and Reisner knew they had something special. Scaglione's involvement elevated the Apollo from an ambitious project to a legitimate exotic car. His design featured clean, flowing lines. The front end was aggressive but elegant. The roofline swept back gracefully. Every curve served a purpose, either aerodynamically or aesthetically. The Apollo did not look like a kit car or a backyard special. It looked like it cost a fortune, because every detail received the same attention you would find on a custom-bodied Ferrari. But beautiful bodywork meant nothing without the right engine. Brown and Reisner made a brilliant decision. They chose the Buick 215 cubic inch aluminum V8. This was not a random choice. The Buick 215 was revolutionary for its time. General Motors had developed this engine as a compact, lightweight power plant for their luxury cars. The entire engine weighed just 315 pounds, or about 143 kilograms. Compare that to traditional cast-iron V8 engines, which often weighed over 500 pounds, or 227 kilograms. The aluminum construction meant the Apollo could achieve near-perfect weight distribution. The V8 sat low in the chassis. The car balanced beautifully, And despite its compact size, the Buick engine produced 225 horsepower in standard form. With some tuning, it could deliver even more. Brown recognized that this engine gave them everything they needed: American reliability, easy parts availability, strong performance, and critically important for a sports car, low weight. The manufacturing process they developed was complex but brilliant. The body panels were crafted in Turin at Intermeccanica's facility. Italian craftsmen, the same artisans who worked on Ferraris and Maseratis, hand-shaped each panel. They understood how to work with aluminum. They knew how to create compound curves that looked effortless but required incredible skill. Each body took weeks to complete. Once the bodies were finished, they were shipped across the Atlantic Ocean to Oakland, California. In Oakland, International Motor Cars, the company Brown and Reisner established, handled final assembly. American mechanics installed the Buick engines. They fitted the suspension components. They assembled the interiors. This transatlantic production process added complexity and cost, but it gave the Apollo something unique. It was genuinely Italian in its craftsmanship and genuinely American in its mechanical soul. By 1963, the Apollo was ready for its public debut. By 1963, the Apollo was ready for its public debut. Brown and Reisner unveiled their creation to the automotive press with understandable nervousness. Magazine editors and journalists had seen countless new car companies come and go. Most failed within months. Most produced mediocre products that could not compete with established brands. The Apollo needed to impress immediately, or it would be dismissed as another failed startup. The response exceeded every expectation. The reviews highlighted the Apollo's build quality, its performance, and especially its value proposition. Performance testing revealed the Apollo was not just pretty. The 3500 GT model, equipped with the base engine, could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour or 97 kilometers per hour in 8.4 seconds. That was respectable for the era, competitive with many European sports cars. But the 5000 GT model, with its more powerful engine tune, achieved 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 6.8 seconds. In 1963, that was seriously fast. That was Ferrari territory. That was Corvette performance wrapped in Italian bodywork. The car felt substantial and well-engineered. Road testers noted that the Apollo drove like a car from an established manufacturer, not a startup building its first model. Everything seemed perfect. The reviews were glowing. Wealthy enthusiasts were interested. The product was excellent. Brown and Reisner had accomplished what they set out to do. They built a world-class grand touring car that could stand alongside European exotics. But behind the success, a catastrophic business problem was developing, a problem that would kill the Apollo despite its excellence. International Motor Cars had started with just $21,000 in capital. In 1963, that was not a large sum for manufacturing automobiles. Each Apollo cost thousands to produce. The bodies from Italy were expensive. The hand assembly took time and skilled labor. Every component had to meet high standards. When Brown and Reisner calculated their costs and set their prices, they made a critical error. They were selling each Apollo below cost. Not slightly below cost. Significantly below cost. Every car they sold lost money. They had priced the Apollo to compete with Corvettes and Jaguars, trying to offer exceptional value. But the transatlantic production process, the hand-built quality, and the low production volumes meant they could not achieve the economies of scale needed to make those prices viable. The more successful they became, the more money they lost. This is the cruel irony of the Apollo story. Brown and Reisner built exactly what they promised. The car was exceptional. The reviews proved it. Customers loved it. But the business model was fundamentally broken from the start. By 1964, just 1 year after the triumphant debut, International Motor Cars had to stop production. They had built approximately 42 cars, 42 examples of automotive excellence, and then the money ran out. But the Apollo story did not end there. The car was too good to simply disappear. A company called Ventura acquired the rights and tooling. They believed they could make the business work where Brown and Reisner had failed. Ventura managed to build 11 more Apollos. They improved some aspects of the production process. They refined certain details. But they faced the same fundamental problem. Low-volume exotic car production was brutally expensive, and the Apollo's price point did not support the costs. After Ventura, another entity called Apollo International Corporation took over. They were the most successful of the three companies, relatively speaking. Apollo International Corporation built 14 cars in 1965. They later constructed 6 additional cars. By this point, the Apollo had evolved slightly. Some cars received different engine options. Some featured updated interiors. But the basic recipe remained the same. Beautiful Italian coachwork, powerful American V8, and ruinous production economics. When you add up all the production across all three companies, the total reaches approximately 88 cars. Of those, somewhere between 76 and 79 were coupes. Between 9 and 11 were convertibles, which the company called Spiders. The exact numbers remain uncertain because the chaotic company transitions and minimal record-keeping left gaps in documentation. But we know for certain that Apollo production was extremely limited, 88 cars total over roughly 3 years of on and off production. For context, Ferrari built hundreds of cars in the same period. Even low-volume models from established manufacturers far exceeded 88 units. The Apollo was rare when new. Today, it is extraordinarily rare. Most people have never seen one in person. Many car enthusiasts do not even know the Apollo existed. All of this combined to make the Apollo 5000 GT one of the most forgotten great cars in automotive history. It had everything except longevity and luck. Milt Brown's engineering vision was sound. Frank Reisner's manufacturing capability was real. Franco Scaglione's design was beautiful. The Buick V8 was brilliant. The finished product was exceptional. But none of that mattered when the money ran out. The Apollo represents a particular kind of tragedy in automotive history. Not the tragedy of a bad car that deserved to fail, but the tragedy of an excellent car that failed anyway. The market does not always reward quality. Sometimes timing is wrong. Sometimes the business model does not work no matter how good the product is. Sometimes exceptional cars are built by people who understand engineering better than they understand finance. For the 88 people who bought Apollos when they were new, the car delivered everything Brown and Reisner promised. They got hand-built Italian coachwork. They got American V8 power and reliability. They got something rare and special that turned heads and performed beautifully. They got to own a piece of automotive history, even if most people did not recognize what they were looking at. Today, the Apollo 5000 GT exists in a strange space. It is valuable enough that collectors pay serious money for good examples. It is rare enough that seeing one is a significant event for car enthusiasts. It is well documented enough that its story is preserved. But it remains obscure enough that you can mention the Apollo at most car shows and get blank looks in return. The surviving Apollos are cherished by their owners. They appear at concours events. They are featured in books about rare sports cars. They occasionally sell at major auctions where their unique history and exceptional quality attract serious bidders. Each one represents Milt Brown's dream of building a world-class grand touring car. Each one proves that with enough talent and determination, even a small startup can create something that stands alongside the greatest names in automotive history. The Apollo 5000 GT was not perfect. No car is. But it was far better than it had any right to be. A small company with limited capital, building cars across 2 continents, managed to create something that impressed the toughest critics in the automotive world. They built a car that could compete with Ferrari and Maserati. They built a car that combined the best of American and Italian automotive culture. They built a car that still looks beautiful and drives beautifully more than 60 years later. What they could not build was a sustainable business. And in the end, that is what killed the Apollo. Not poor quality, not bad reviews, not lack of performance, just the brutal economics of low-volume manufacturing and the reality that even exceptional products fail if the business fundamentals are not right. Milt Brown learned that lesson the hard way. So did Frank Reisner. So did everyone who tried to keep the Apollo alive after international motor cars collapsed. The Apollo 5000 GT deserves to be remembered. It deserves recognition as one of the great might-have-beens in automotive history. It proves that American engineers could match European sophistication. It proves that Italian craftsmen could work with American components to create something genuinely special. It proves that a small team with a clear vision can accomplish remarkable things. even if those accomplishments do not lead to commercial success. For those lucky enough to own one of the surviving cars, the Apollo is not a forgotten failure. It is a masterpiece, a rare, beautiful, exceptional automobile that represents a brief moment when everything came together perfectly, except the money.